To get right into it, how you feel about this second autopsy that was done on Nolan Wells?
Yes, I think when we last spoke, we were awaiting the forensic autopsy because the original autopsy performed by the county examiner, we just weren't convinced.
I didn't come down here do anything other but to get the truth. Did you kill Nolan? Did you have anything to do with Nolan's death? Did you delete anything out of Nolan's phone?
If this were your child, wouldn't you want to know what happened?
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the work coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
What did we just hear? What was that? One more time, please.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
Nolan Wells kept a phone in his pocket every day of his life. On July 4th, it stayed behind on a boat on a remote island, 10 miles from shore.
Hello?
He did not.
Hey.
That's the detail this case still hasn't explained.
How far is the water coming
not
up,
the
sir?
boat, not the water,
It's coming
the
up.
phone.
We're just sinking.
Before we go
I don't
further,
know. Like,
a quick note.
We're going down now.
This episode discusses a teenager's death, a family's grief, and details from an active criminal investigation. Nothing graphic is described. If that's not what you're looking for tonight, this may not be the episode for you. For everyone staying, thank you for trusting us to handle this carefully. On July 3rd, Nolan had dinner with his family, then left to spend the night at a friend's house. It was an ordinary decision, made the way teenagers make plans every summer. Nothing about it read as significant at the time. Sit with that for a second. A quiet Thursday dinner. A goodbye that nobody thought to make longer. That was the last full day his parents had with certainty about where their son was. The next morning, a group of friends set out by boat, heading toward Horn Island, a barrier island reachable only by water. Confirmed reporting places the boat's departure at 9:56 a.m. Nolan was on it. Horn Island isn't a place you drift to by accident. It's remote, undeveloped, and once you're there until someone brings a boat back for you. Every choice made on that island happened without another set of eyes to confirm it. That single fact is the reason this case has stayed open as long as it has. For Nolan's parents, that day became the last one they can account for with any certainty, and the first day of a search that would end 6 weeks later in the worst possible way. By that evening, one thing had already changed. The friends who left the island came back without him. Here's where you come in. If you're watching this tonight, tell us where from. This case has pulled people in from every part of the country, and I want to know how far it's traveled. Now the call. Investigators have obtained and are reviewing a recording placed from the boat that afternoon, reporting mechanical trouble and requesting a tow. Officials have confirmed the audio exists and that it's part of the active investigation. What officials have not done is tell the public what, if anything, it proves. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this case. A call existing is a fact. What the call means is not yet, not to investigators, and not to you or me. According to reporting on the call, a teenager aboard the boat can reportedly be heard telling the dispatcher he wanted to get the boat, quote, unsunk and towed back. That's the extent of what's been publicly confirmed about its content. Investigators are conducting their own technical analysis of the recording to determine whether it holds anything further. Here's the honest reason this call has consumed so much attention online. It's the only real-time audio anyone has from that day. Everything else in this case is being reconstructed after the fact, from memory, under pressure, weeks later. This call is the one piece of the timeline that isn't secondhand. For a family trying to understand their son's last hours, an unreleased recording that investigators themselves are still analyzing isn't closure. It's a locked door with a light on behind it. And it's not the only object at the center of this case that raises more questions the closer you look. For weeks, Nolan's cell phone was unaccounted for. It has since been recovered, reportedly from the boat itself. But recovering it didn't close the question. It reopened one. Ask yourself something simple. When was the last time you left home for a full day without your phone? Now ask what it would take for you to leave it behind. On a boat, on a remote island, planning, according to some accounts, to stay behind without it. Confirmed reporting establishes that Nolan's phone and his keys were both absent from him when his friends returned without him. His car had been parked overnight at a friend's house before the trip, which, according to the friend group, explains the keys. The phone's absence has been explained differently by different people at different times, and those explanations have not stayed consistent throughout the investigation. Investigators have specifically requested original, unedited photos and video from July 4th, particularly anything showing Nolan or any altercation involving him. That's not a routine request. That's investigators telling us, without saying it outright, that the existing accounts of that day haven't fully closed the gap for them either. Christine Wansley, Nolan's mother, has spent weeks asking a question that shouldn't require an investigation to answer. Why didn't anyone bring her son's phone back to her before it became evidence? For a mother, that's not a forensic detail. That's the last thread connecting her to her son's day. And it was handed back to her only after the search for him had already begun. Before we go further, one thing worth saying plainly. Two friends in that group have given accounts that line up on almost every detail except one, who Nolan told he was staying with. That single disagreement is the reason this investigation hasn't closed. Not proof of anything, just the reason nobody has been able to write a final page yet. Nolan's body was recovered on July 6th. Since then, there have been two separate examinations, the county medical examiner's initial autopsy and a second, independent forensic exam requested by the family. As of the most recent confirmed reporting, the results of the official state autopsy have not been made public. The Jackson County District Attorney's Office has stated those results will remain sealed until presented to a grand jury. That's worth repeating plainly, because it's the fact most likely to get lost in the noise. Nobody outside investigators and the medical examiner's office currently knows the official cause of death. Not us. Not most of the commentators you've seen online. Not, as of this recording, even the family's own attorney. Family attorney Ben Crump has publicly stated the cause of death remains undetermined following the independent exam. Some commentary online in the weeks since has described specific findings as though they're confirmed. As of now, none of that has been independently verified by officials, and we're not going to repeat those specifics as fact when the people who conducted the exam haven't done so themselves. This is the part of the story that requires the most discipline to sit with, because it's also the part most likely to be misused. A grand jury exists specifically to weigh evidence before anyone is charged with anything. Convening one is standard procedure for unexplained deaths in this county. Officials have said as much directly, not proof, on its own, that a crime occurred. For a family standing at a podium holding their son's photograph, undetermined isn't a placeholder. It's 6 more weeks of not knowing, stretched out publicly, in front of millions of strangers who all think they already know the answer. And it's that gap, between what's confirmed and what's assumed, where the loudest part of this story has been playing out. Nolan Wells' death has become one of the most closely watched cases in the country this summer, not only because of what happened on that boat, but because of where it happened and who was on it. Mississippi's Gulf Coast carries a history that doesn't need restating for most viewers watching this. When a young black man goes missing after a trip with a group of friends who were, by public reporting, entirely white, that history doesn't stay in the background. It shapes how people watch, what they assume, and how fast patience runs out. That context is exactly why civil rights attorneys and national outlets have stayed engaged with this case since July, and why crowds have shown up outside courthouses demanding transparency rather than waiting quietly for a press release. None of that public pressure determines what actually happened on Horn Island. but it explains why wait for the investigation has stopped being a satisfying answer for a lot of people watching. Here's the tension this channel exists to sit inside of, honestly. The demand for answers is completely reasonable. The family deserves them. The public scrutiny is, in many ways, exactly what's kept this case from quietly closing without them. But reasonable public pressure and confirmed fact are two different things, and a responsible account of this case has to hold both without collapsing one into the other. Somewhere underneath all of it is still just a teenager who made his mom dinner 2 nights before he died, and a family that has to keep living the answer, whatever it turns out to be, long after the cameras move to the next case. Here's everything we can say with confidence tonight. Nolan Wells died sometime after July 4th. His body was recovered July 6th. His phone and keys were both absent from him when his friends returned without him, and the explanations for that have shifted since. A distress call from the boat exists and is under active technical review. 2 autopsies have been conducted, and the official results remain sealed pending a grand jury. Nothing beyond that has been confirmed by officials. Not a cause of death, not a manner of death, not a determination of any crime. What happens next depends on that grand jury, and on an investigation officials have said is still ongoing. When that changes, we'll be back with exactly what's confirmed, no more, no less. If you want that update the moment it's public, rather than 3 days later buried under speculation, subscribing is the fastest way to make sure you see it first. What do you think investigators are still missing? Tell us below. We read every one.
Do it. How you feel about this second autopsy that was done on Nolan Wells?
Yes, I think when we last spoke, we were awaiting the forensic autopsy because the original autopsy performed by the county examiner, we just weren't convinced it would be independent, quite frankly, because we weren't getting enough information from law enforcement. And so the forensic autopsy came back. And lo and behold, even though they're trying to downplay it, and I understand Ben Crump and NAACP and others don't want to try and jump to conclusion or step too far out, but the forensic autopsy showed that there was what they call discoloration. No, I call them bruises in the back of the head, appearing that someone has had their hand pressed at the back of their head, at the back of Nolan's head. That's concerning to me. And so hopefully we'll get some more insight on that. I'm not sure. It seems like there's another opportunity for them to investigate something physiological. I'm just not sure because as far as I knew, the forensic autopsy is as far as you go, but we'll see. But yeah, that's what causes new concern. And then you've had different stories coming out from the teenagers. One of the young men himself spoke out about it, claiming they had begged Nolan to get on the boat, and that he wouldn't. Then there's the woman that he's supposed to have stayed back with. I think her name Katie or something. Well, he was supposed to have stayed back with Katie. That was their story. However, Katie's friend says that Katie she saw him only in passing on the island, didn't stay with him, and Katie isn't saying anything at all. So it's a lot of moving parts here, and I'm just hoping it's not one of those, quite frankly, and if his friends didn't have anything to do with it and they truly left him behind, etc., etc., he has discoloration, bruises on the back of his neck. Something happened. And quite frankly, this is Mississippi, where in 1955, which sparked the civil rights movement, Emmett Till was killed for so-called whistling at a white woman. And now we're hearing Nolan Wells stayed back to be with a white woman. And he turns up dead with bruises behind his neck. That's the context I'm putting this in.
A lot of people are pointing fingers at their friends. From your professional opinion, what makes them look guilty?
I wouldn't say it makes them look guilty, but it definitely makes them look suspicious. The friends did not act as friends normally do. First of all, if you leave your friend back, you're going to know exactly who they stayed with. And from the very beginning, it has been conflicting information. The young lady allegedly was named Katie, and she says allegedly that Nolan told her that he was going back with the friends he came with. And those friends are saying that he stayed back with Katie. So one of those two cannot be the truth. And what we do know is that Katie did not lawyer up initially. I don't think she still has lawyered up, but we were told that the so-called friends lawyered up initially. They deactivated their social media, maybe scrubbed some of their social media initially. That's very suspicious. Why would you do that if no foul play was expected or had occurred? Because people drown every year. And if you're just a witness to someone drowning, there's no need to be so afraid or
So fidgety.
So fidgety.
Yeah. Now, a lot of things were going on as this unfolded, a lot of suspicious activity. And I'm going to kind of highlight a couple of them for you. The first was, his phone and keys were not on his person. How did you feel about that particular information when you got that?
That in of itself, the phone, if you're out boating and the water was so high, you normally would have your phone on a dry location. So you would have left it in the interior of the boat or something. But the suspicious thing would come when if he allegedly told them he was going to go stay on the island with a young lady, he would have retrieved his phone. You know for certain you don't have it on you. Yeah. And so that's one of the first things you're going to do.
I would think I would give you the phone. Hey, yo, here's your phone.
He would have voluntarily, when it retrieved, or his friends would have reminded him of taking it to him before they got on the boat and left the island. They would have seen it. And definitely if they just happened to forget to give it to him, as soon as they got back to land, they would have taken it to his mother or his father.